So, good morning, everyone. Today's session on biochemistry will be regarding the cell. So, for our objectives for today's lecture, we aim to have a brief review about cells, its history, as well as cell theory, to learn the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, to discuss the structure and function of different parts of the cell, to learn about the different cell transport processes, and to review the different phases of the cell cycle. So, what is the cell? The cell is the basic unit of life. It's a universal feature of all your living cells. Uh, it's the simplest collection of matter that can live, and all living organisms are made up of cells. So, if hindi ka made up of cells, hindi siya living organisms. An example is your viruses. Kasi di ba yung viruses natin, if you remember from your biology class, hindi siya cell, it's a virus. It's a collection of genetic material and some proteins. Pero hindi niya kayang mag-live on its own. It doesn't have the capacity to reproduce by itself. That's why it infects cells and uses their machinery in order to proliferate or multiply. Yung cells natin, kompleto siya. It can survive on its own. It can make its own energy. It can make its energy by itself. So, all cells, yung organisms natin, pwede siyang made up of one cell, pwede siyang made up of multiple cells. So, it can be unicellular or either multicellular. Yung organisms natin can also be prokaryotic or it can be eukaryotic. Kasi yung cells natin, they all have either a nucleoid region or a nucleus that contains yung DNA or genetic material of the cell. They all have a plasma membrane. They all have a cytoplasm. Ang pinagkaiba lang is yung, as we will discuss later, is how the genetic material is organized inside the cell, and if there is the presence of what we call as yung parang mini organs inside the cell, which we refer to as membrane-bound organelles. So, this class is about biochemistry. So, ang start ng lecture natin is about the cell. Kasi, syempre, yung cell formed together, a group of cells with the same function together is referred to as a tissue. A group of tissues with the same function is referred to as an organ. And a group of organs uh, put together is an organ system. So, multiple organ systems make up your organism. So, let's go lang into a quick historical background on how the cell was discovered. The cell was first discovered by Robert Hooke in 1665, wherein he viewed thin samples of cork under a compound light microscope. So, yung cork, di ba, siya yung material na nasa corkboard natin, yung parang brown na porous material from plants. So, aside from sa corkboard, makikita mo rin siya yung stopper, di ba, ng mga alcoholic beverages. So, ito, yung cork tissue, si Robert Hooke, kumuha siya ng thin slice ng cork tissue, and then he viewed that under the compound light microscope. Tapos, ito yung nakita niya. So, sabi niya, mukha tong cells. Yung cells na he's referring to is parang cells or selda, maliliit na kwarto, where monks used to stay during the 1600s when they are meditating. So, dahil mukha siyang maliliit na kwarto, mukha siyang cells, yun ang tinawag ni Robert Hooke doon sa nakita niya under the microscope. And this is the drawing of what he saw. So, yung cells na nakita ni Robert Hooke at that time is cork. So, it's already dead. Dead organism. It's already a dead organism. It's a dead plant. It wasn't until 1674 that Anton van Leeuwenhoek was first to observe living microorganisms. Kaya nga si Anton van Leeuwenhoek yung tinatawag nating father of microbiology. Kasi siya yung unang nakakita ng mga ating mga microorganisms, yung mga living organisms natin na you cannot see with the naked eye because they're too small. So si Anton van Leeuwenhoek viewed a drop of water under the microscope and nakakita siya ng mga what they experts think are protozoans. Kasi unicellular organisms sila na visible under a simple microscope. So, yung nakita niyang cells na gumagalaw under the microscope, he recalled them animalcules kasi they're mini animals na nakikita lang using a microscope. So, that's how the microscope helped with the development of the foundations of our biology as a subject as a whole. So, it wasn't until 1839 that the cell theory was developed or theorized by Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann. So, yung pinostulate ni Matthias Schleiden and Theodor Schwann is yung first two dito sa cell theory na dinidiscuss natin. Na i-discuss natin. Yung third rule sa cell theory was later on proposed in 1858 by Robert Virchow, which is the theory of biogenesis. So let's go into the cell theory. The cell theory states that the cell is the basic structural and functional unit of all living organisms. So sinabi na natin kanina, lahat na basta living organism, it's made up of it's made up of cells as its simplest structure. And the organisms can be made up of one or more cells. So as mentioned earlier, yung organisms natin, pwede siyang unicellular, pwede siyang multicellular. And then the third rule, which is the theory of biogenesis, is yung pinropose ni Robert Virchow. It's that cells arise from pre-existing cells. So, hindi siya pwedeng tumubo lang from kung saan. So, dapat ang mga cells mo, nanggaling siya sa previous cell na nag-replicate, and yung cells na yon pwede siya give rise to uh, to the next generation and to later generations of cells. So, there are two types of cells, as mentioned earlier. You have your prokaryotes and your eukaryotes. So, ano tong prokaryotes and eukaryotes natin? Yung prokaryotes natin, as in pro, or before, karyo, is your nucleus. So, before nucleus, so hindi pa nagkakaroon ng nucleus, hindi pa sila nakapag-develop ng nucleus, kaya tinatawag siyang prokaryotes. Meanwhile, meron tayong eukaryotes or yung true karyotes. So, meron siyang true nucleus. So, ano ba yung nucleus na tinatawag natin? Sa mga prokaryotes kasi, yung mga simplest organisms like your bacteria, ang genetic material niya or DNA is one long singular loop. So, isang circular loop. So, isang malaking bilog lang yung itong DNA niya or yung genetic material niya. And the area in which this genetic material is found in your prokaryote or bacterial cell is called the nucleoid region. So, nucleoid region parang nucleus, pero hindi. Kasi, hindi siya defined, wala siyang definite border kung hanggang saan siya. Hindi kagaya ng nucleus, as in true nucleus found in your eukaryotic cells. Yung DNA niya is said to be linear. So, hindi siya isang malaking bilog lang. Is said to be linear. And they are found inside the nucleus that is bound by a nuclear membrane. So, defined region, itong area kung saan matatagpuan yung genetic material ng eukaryotic cells. Kaya nga siya tinawag na true nucleus. Hindi kagaya dito, nucleoid. Parang nucleus, pero hindi. So prokaryotes, nucleoid region with circular DNA. Nucleus, linear DNA found inside the nucleus bound by a nuclear membrane. Another difference from our prokaryotic cells and your eukaryotic cells is the presence of membrane-bound organelles. So, sabi nga natin, mas primitive yung mga prokaryotes natin. Yung bacterial cell, wala siyang organelles. Ang meron lang organelles ay yung mga eukaryotes natin, like your animal cells and your protozoa, your parasites, your fungi. Meron silang membrane-bound organelles. So, organelles, mini organ. So, meron silang mga iba-ibang function inside the cell that helps it perform the various processes needed in order to sustain life. So, aside from that, another important part ng pagkakaiba ng ating prokaryotes, such as your bacteria, versus your eukaryotes, is where the energy is produced. Sa ating prokaryotes, ang site of energy production is nandito, sa plasma membrane, yung outer layer ng ating bacterial cell. Meanwhile, sa animal cell, merong dedicated area or organelle for energy production, and that is the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell, as we all know. So, let's have a rundown of the differences mentioned between the prokaryotes and the eukaryotic cells. So, what are the differences? So, I didn't mention this earlier, but of course, since mas primitive yung prokaryotes natin, wala siyang membrane-bound organelles na kailangan i-accommodate, they are smaller in size. Yung prokaryotes natin varies from 0.5 to 5 micrometer, while our eukaryotes can grow larger than 10 micrometer, even longer, no? As far as the nucleus or the nucleoid region is concerned, yung prokaryotes nga natin is yung DNA niya is found in the nucleoid region in the cytosol. Meanwhile, sa eukaryotes, erase. So, yung nucleus ng prokaryotes natin, yung DNA ng prokaryotes natin is found in the nucleoid region in the cytosol and hindi siya bound by a nuclear membrane. Meanwhile, yung DNA ng eukaryotes natin is nasa loob nasa nucleus na surrounded by a nuclear membrane. So, yung genome, as mentioned earlier, sa prokaryotes is circular. And meron siyang naka-complex siya or nakabind siya sa ilang RNA. Meanwhile, sa eukaryotes naman, yung linear na DNA natin is complexed with proteins. So, another very vital difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes is the presence of membrane-bound organelles in eukaryotes only. Sa prokaryotes, wala tayo ng organelles. And as mentioned, yung site of energy generation ng ating prokaryotes is the cell membrane, while sa eukaryotes naman, ang site of energy generation is yung mitochondria. We also have different types of cell division or multiplication in our eukaryotes and prokaryotes. Sa prokaryotes, yung binary fission is how they refer to the cell division that occurs in prokaryotes. Meanwhile, sa eukaryotes, there are two types. Meron tayong for the ordinary cells, yung mga tinatawag nating somatic cells, ang cell division that it undergoes is called mitosis. Meanwhile, yung sa mga sex cells natin, yung sa mga ovum, sa mga sperm cells, they undergo yung tinatawag nating meiosis, which is a more complicated type of cell division and depende rin sa gender yung nangyayari if we're talking about humans in particular. So for today's lecture, we will be focusing doon sa mitosis. So, yung mga prokaryotes natin, sinabi natin mas primitive sila. So, mga bacteria, they're unicellular. Sa eukaryotes natin, meron din tayong mga hindi sila lahat multicellular. Take note. Meron tayong mga amoeba, meron tayong mga unicellular fungi. They are eukaryotes, they have membrane-bound organelles. they have true nucleus pero unicellular lang sila. So, hindi porket unicellular is automatic prokaryote ka na. Meron tayong prokaryotes na like bacteria na talagang unicellular. Meron tayong eukaryotes na unicellular din. So, yung eukaryotes can be unicellular or multicellular. So, let's go discuss the eukaryotic cells since as humans, we are eukaryotes. So, the general structure of the eukaryotic cell is this one. Ayan, you can see, meron tayong plasma membrane, meron tayong membrane-bound organelles, meron tayong nuclear membrane, at meron tayong defined na nucleus. So, let's discuss the parts of our cell one by one. Let's start from the outside going in. So, yung from the outside environment, if you approach the cell, ang una mong ma-encounter is yung plasma membrane, which we also refer to as the cell membrane or the plasma lemma. Ang purpose ng plasma membrane natin is it envelopes the cell contents. It serves as the boundary between the environment outside of the cell and the inner contents of the cell, as well as supports the structure of the cell. It regulates movement of material into and out of the cell kasi nga, siya yung boundary, hindi naman makakadaan yung kung ano mang gustong pumasok or kung ano mang gustong lumabas nang hindi siya dumadaan sa plasma membrane. So, yung plasma membrane yung nagre-regulate ng entry and exit of materials. It also plays a role in cellular communication kasi syempre, if another cell wants to communicate with the cell, with a particular cell, hindi naman siya makakapag-communicate then directly with the nucleus. Kailangan dumaan muna siya ng plasma membrane. So, yun yung importance nito. So, yung mga receptors kasi found din sa surface ng ating plasma membrane. So, ano bang structure nitong plasma membrane natin? Let's go into detail about the structure of the plasma membrane. Yung plasma membrane kasi natin, yung tinatawag nating phospholipid bilayer. Pero aside sa phospholipid, yung ating cell ay also made up of aside from phospholipid, meron din siyang cholesterol which helps with the fluidity. Pero ang majority of the with the fluidity of the plasma membrane. Pero majority of the structure of your plasma membrane is made up of phospholipid. Ito yon. Meron siyang phosphate head at meron siyang lipid tail. So, bakit siya naging bilayer naman? Kaya siya naging bilayer kasi dalawang layer. So, 1, 2, dalawa yung layer niya. This is one layer of phospholipid. This is another layer of phospholipid dito sa baba. So, bakit naging important yung pagiging bilayer nito? Kasi nga, 'di ba, yung outside niya, yung aqueous environment, yung environment outside the cell, yung interstitial fluid. So, aqueous din yun. So, watery yung nandito. Yung loob ng cell, mostly water din. Kasi nga, di ba, may intracellular fluid tayo. So, dito, water din. So, ang maganda sa ating plasma membrane is meron siya nitong meron siyang hydrophilic head at meron siyang hydrophobic tail. So, yung mga hydrophilic head, yun yung nagpe-face sa aqueous environment ng outside at dun sa aqueous environment inside the cell. Tapos, na-isolate ngayon yung mga hydrophobic tail sa pagitan ng mga phosphate heads ng bilayer natin. So, hindi siya magiging permeable to watery substances kasi magiging strongly hydrophobic to. So, hindi basta-basta maghahalo yung contents ng external environment at ng internal environment ng cell. Kasi nga, di ba nga, pag may naglagay tayo ng oil sa ibabaw ng tubig, hindi siya nagmi-mix. So, since same idea dito, kasi, di ba, like dissolves like, pag hindi sila alike, hindi siya magdi-dissolve. Like this one. So, yung aqueous, hindi siya makakapasok. Kasi nga, meron kang layer na hydrophobic separating the two areas. So, aside from the phospholipid bilayer, meron ding mga embedded na proteins dito sa ating plasma membrane structure. Like this one, meron siya yung superficial na proteins located dito sa ating structure. Meron din tayo nitong mga channel proteins. Dito naman dumadaan yung mga hindi makatawid. So, that's how the plasma membrane regulates. Napapapasok niya kung sino lang yung mga gusto niyang ipapasukin, papalabas niya yung sino lang gusto niyang palabasin. Hindi siya basta-bastang nag-aalaw ng entry at exit ng substance sa cell controlled. So, another important part of your plasma membrane is cell communication. Kasi yung mga receptors mo, nakikita siya sa ating plasma membrane. And in fact, itong mga carbohydrate chains na to, they act as receptors. Then, yun mga detect ng ating mga cells para mag-communicate with other cells, and ito rin yung na-detect para malaman ng mga actually is very important din in immunology kasi yung may mga certain receptors tayo na that favors that certain viruses or bacteria uh, have a predisposition to. So, depende sa tissue, kaya yung mga ibang diseases natin affect certain types of tissue while others don't. So, next part of our cell. So, yung next part naman na nasa cell natin na i-discuss natin is yung cytoplasm. Di ba? Tapos na tayo sa cell membrane. So, kung kanyari, ito yung cell membrane natin. Kanyari, ito yung cell membrane natin. Ang cytoplasm is yung gelatinous substances inside this membrane, pero outside the nucleus and the nuclear membrane. So, kung ito yung nuclear membrane mo, yung cytoplasm mo is this entire area. So, ano yung cytoplasm natin? It's the cytosol, the substance in which the organelles are suspended, yung parang tubig or parang fluid substance siya sa loob, plus yung mga organelles, either membrane bound or free, na nakasuspend dun sa area na yun. So, itong cytoplasm is a very important part kasi dito nagdadaanan dito nakasuspend yung mga maraming cellular processes na nangyayari kasi dito eh. It's a fluid medium na kung saan nangyayari, may mga diffusion, mga nutrients na kailangan ng organelles, nandun din. Meron dito din nangyayari yung ibang metabolic processes that we will discuss later on in our course. So, medyo vague in definition, but it's basically the site of everything. Well, not everything, but a lot of things. So, next naman sa discussion natin is yung cytoskeleton. So, yung cytoskeleton, it provides a structural support to our cells. So, siya yung nagme-maintain ng shape ng cells natin. So, in a similar manner as to the skeletons in our body, it also assists with movement of materials as well as yung movement ng cell itself. So, there are three types of yung cytoskeleton natin. We have yung microtubules, we have your microfilaments, and your intermediate filaments. So, anong pagkakaiba nitong tatlo? So, yung microfilaments, wait. So, start tayo sa microtubules. So, microtubules, isa siya sa nagme-maintain ng cell shape natin. It also is very important in the movement of your genetic material during cell division. Kasi 'di ba pag may cell ka, tapos magdi-divide siya, dodoblehin niya yung size niya, dodoblehin niya yung genetic material niya, tapos pag kunyari, na-xerox niya na yung genetic material niya, so paghihiwalayin na yon. Ang naghihiwalay doon sa genetic material para maging two different cells na siya, para mag-produce ka ng dalawang different cells, is yung microtubules. So, the microtubules are very important as far as cell division is concerned. Itong microtubules din, yung ay component nung cilia, if you are familiar. Cilia, yun yung parang cell projections dito sa kunyari for this one is not cilia, pero this is microvilli. Pero siya yung projections ng cell, para siyang maliliit na hairs but not quite. Cell extensions of the cell siya that help propel yung kunyari dito sa respiratory tract natin. We have cilia, di ba? Meron tayong tinatawag na mucociliary elevator. So, pag may nakapasok na mikrobyo, yung mikrobyo na yun, ine-expel ng parang pinagpapasa-pasahan siya ng mga silya na ng mga silya sa mga cells ng respiratory tract natin para mailabas siya ulit. Kaya mo siya isi-sneeze, kaya mo siya iibo. And then, next type of cytoskeleton naman is yung microfilaments. Yung microfilaments naman is very helpful in contraction and movement of the cells. So how does it go about that? Yung for example, 'di ba, pag yung mga mga cells natin like your RBCs, dumadaan sila sa maninipis na capillaries or yung mga platelets natin pag nag-change siya ng shape. Kasi yung mga platelets natin may mga laman yan. So pag mag-activate yung platelet natin, magpapalit siya ng anyo. So pag contract ng platelet natin, para mag-contract yung platelet natin, ang tumutulong doon is yung microfilaments. Yung microfilaments na yon, it also helps in the movement of substances inside the cytoplasm. No, tinatawag nating cytoplasmic streaming. Yung microfilaments din ay very important in the splitting of two cells. So kunyari, 'di ba, yung microtubule sa paghiwalay niya ng genetic material. Yung pag-form naman ng yung paghati naman nung cell itself, cytoplasm and all, yung tinatawag nating cytokinesis, that falls under the purview naman, or yung gumaganap naman dun sa role ng cytokinesis is yung microfilaments. Yung third type of cytoskeleton naman natin is yung intermediate filaments. So intermediate filaments are very important for maintaining cell structure and cell shape, as well as maintaining yung shape ng ating nucleus. So, nuclear integrity. Next, our favorite organelle ng lahat ng tao, probably, the mitochondria, also known as the powerhouse of the cell. It's the site of energy production of eukaryotes. So, ang energy produced naman in eukaryotes is in the form of ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. So, it's an adenosine molecule combined with 3-phosphate atoms. So, bawat phosphate na yon, pag tinanggal mo yung isang phosphate, may mapoproduce na energy. Pag tinanggal mo isa pa, more energy is produced. So, this phosphate containing substance, yung ATP natin, is very important since yung ATP is parang currency ng katawan natin. Pag kailangan mong gumawa ng something, kailangan mo ng energy, ATP yung ginagamit ng katawan natin to power the processes forward. So, let's discuss yung structure ng ating mitochondria. So, ano nga ba yung structure ng mitochondria natin? Yung mitochondria natin is a double membrane bound organelle. So, meron siyang outer mitochondrial membrane. Meron din siyang inner mitochondrial membrane. So, ang important dito is yung outer membrane mo is very smooth. Tapos, ayan siya, di ba? Makikita mo. Yung outer membrane mo, very smooth siya. Kaya yung mitochondria natin, mukha siyang kidney bean or something. Pero yung inside niya, meron siyang may mga infoldings called cristae. Or ayan yun, di ba? Ayan. So, ito. So, this one is a cristae ng infolding of the inner mitochondrial membrane. So, yung loob naman nito loob ng mitochondria is what we refer to as the mitochondrial matrix. So, anong importance nga ng mitochondria natin? Paano siya nagpo-produce ng energy? So, di ba, ang energy na ginagamit natin, sugar. So, sugar, simplest form of sugar is glucose. Pag na-fully digest mo yung glucose, yung products ng glucose metabolism, papasok siya ngayon sa mitochondria natin. Tapos, pagpasok mo sa mitochondria natin, it will undergo the final common pathway of all metabolism, which is referred to as the citric acid or the Krebs cycle. We will discuss the citric acid cycle in greater detail later on in the course, I think around midterms. Pero after that, uh, pero I'll go into detail na lang later. Pero rest assured, meron kang pinoproduce na energy here in the citric acid cycle. And yung metabolites nito can proceed later into what we refer to as the electron transport chain. So dito talaga sa electron transport chain, nangyayari yung majority of energy production in our body, in the cells of our body. So, ano nangyayari sa electron transport chain? So, yung mga it's a system of transporting electrons in such a way that later on you will yield ATP. So, maraming ATP na produce with every turn ng mga complexes dito sa electron transport chain. That's why it's very important. So, kaya nga, a clinical correlate dito sa mitochondria natin. Fun fact, if you have heard of cyanide poisoning, cyanide is a very potent poison. I don't know if napanood nyo to sa mga series or sa mga drama or if you've read of it before. So, ang nangyayari kasi sa cyanide poisoning is a very small dose is enough to kill an elephant, ganun, yung levels niya. Kasi ang tina-target ng cyanide is itong energy production inside the mitochondria. It stops one of the complexes here dito sa electron transport chain, itong complex 4. So, pag natigil niya yung pag-transport ng electrons inside the mitochondria, titigil yung ATP production, mauubusan ng energy, yung katawan mo, you will go into acidosis, you can die, and you will die very fast. So, very important to note yung cyanide poisoning, and it's also a very high yield topic which we'll discuss later on sa CC nyo and other chem classes. So, next. Let's discuss naman yung ating ribosomes. So, ribosomes are the site of protein synthesis. It's a very small part of the cell. They're made up of both proteins and RNA, another type of nucleic acid bukod sa DNA. Yun yung nagiging template ng ating mga protein production. So, meron sariling type of RNA found in our ribosomes. And there are two subunits to a ribosome. Merong large subunit, merong small subunit, and then they complex together and form a tandem that when that cooperate to form your proteins, so protein translation. So, yung subunits na to, depende siya sa type of cell. Kung prokaryotes, meron siyang subunits na can be measured as 70 Swedberg units. This is more technical side of measuring the size of our ribosome. So, pag prokaryotes, mas maliit. Ang total ng measurement niya is 70S. Sa eukaryote naman, ang total is 80S. So, itong ribosomes natin can be free floating in the cytosol, or it can be bound to another organelle, which we refer to as the endoplasmic reticulum, thus forming yung next organelle na i-discuss natin. One type of the next organelle na i-discuss natin, which is the rough ER. So, what's that endoplasmic reticulum? So yung endoplasmic reticulum is a convoluted membranous network of intercommunicating channels called cisterns. There are two types of endoplasmic reticulum. Meron tayong rough ER, meron tayong smooth ER. So itong rough ER muna tayo, no? So rough ER, kaya siya rough kasi nga dito nakikita mo, ayan, no? Meron siyang mga nakakabit na ribosomes doon sa kanyang surface. So may yung mga ribosomes diyan na nakakabit sa ER, gagawa sila ng proteins. Tapos ang gagawin ng ER is sasaluhin niya 'yon, imo-modify at iso-store. Later, ipapackage siya ng ibang organelles for transfer to other parts of the cell. So for example, si ribosome mo, gumawa siya ng digestive enzyme. So ang magso-store nun temporarily is yung rough endoplasmic reticulum. Next, another type of endoplasmic reticulum, mas versatile, pero less actually, madalas ang napapansin yung rough ER kasi may ribosome. Pero meron din tayong another type of endoplasmic reticulum by itself, meron din siya maraming function. So, ang smooth, ito namang other ER natin is itong smooth endoplasmic reticulum. It has multiple functions. Yung unang function niya is yung synthesis of not protein, synthesis of lipids or yung fats. Kasi dito nangyayari yung site of production ng mga fats natin na nagiging component nga nung plasma membrane, like yung cholesterol, phospholipids. And then another important function of the smooth ER is detoxification. So, paano niya ginagawa yun, di ba? For example, sa liver natin, very developed yung endoplasmic reticulum. So, yung mga alcohol, barbiturates, and other drugs, yung ang nag-aalaw na ma-detoxify ng liver natin is yung very developed na smooth ER in the liver cells. And another function that I wasn't able to mention here is in muscle, merong siyang specific type of smooth endoplasmic reticulum which refer to as sarcoplasmic reticulum. Sa muscle natin, ang ginagawa naman is ang smooth ER ay nagiging site of calcium storage. So kasi yung calcium, very important siya as far as muscle contraction is concerned. So if gusto mong igalaw yung muscle mo, kunyari gusto mo mag-flex ng biceps or mag-extend ng legs mo, bawat galaw mo nun, kailangan ng calcium ng muscle cell. So, before contraction, mag-iipon yung muscle cell ng mga calcium. Tapos, pag kailangan nyo na i-contract, tsaka nyo yun i-release. So, very important siya in our muscles. So, next, we will have your Golgi apparatus. Yung Golgi apparatus is the packaging center of the cell. It completes the modification of proteins produced in the rough endoplasmic reticulum and packages and addresses these proteins to send them to their proper destinations. Itong Golgi apparatus, yung gumagawa nung tinatawag nating secretory vesicles, transport vesicles, at saka yung mga lysosomes, which is another type of organelle found inside the cell. So, got an example, no? Sinabi natin, yung nucleus mo makes the genetic material, mag-order siya, oy, gawa tayo digestive enzyme. So, yung orders ng nucleus mo nagawa ng digestive enzyme, susundin yun ng ribosome dahil yung digestive enzyme natin is mostly made of protein. So, si ribosome na nakakabit sa rough ER, gagawa siya ng digestive enzyme. Pag nagawa niya na yung digestive enzyme, hindi niya yun bastang ilalabas lang sa cytoplasm kasi madadigest yung cell mismo. So, what happens is, while yung stored na nagawang digestive enzyme, kukunin yun ng Golgi apparatus at ipapackage niya into in order to secure it, para hindi siya mag-leak into the cytoplasm, hindi niya ma-damage yung sarili niya. So, uh, aside from dun nga sa example ng digestive enzymes, yung ibang proteins din na kailangan ng katawan natin, pinapackage siya ng Golgi apparatus for shipping to other areas of the cell. So, here are some types of vesicles, inclusion bodies found inside a eukaryotic cell. So, meron tayong transport vesicles. There are spherical membrane-bound organelles involved in the transport of cellular material. They can be produced by either your Golgi apparatus, as mentioned earlier, as well as yung cell membrane. They can bud off from the cell membrane and form vesicles. At meron tayong tinatawag na vesicular transport that we will discuss later on in this lecture. We also have yung lysosomes. Ito yung example natin. They're also spherical membrane-bound organelles, and they are referred to as the suicidal bags. Kasi sila yung nagko-contain ng digestive enzymes ng cell natin. If gusto niyang mag-suicide ng cell, i-activate niya yung lysosomes niya. I-release yung digestive enzymes sa loob. At ginagamit din yung lysosomes pag-digest ng mga, for example, white blood cell, may kinain na bacteria. In order to digest the bacteria, yung na-digest yun na nakain niya na bacteria, papatahan niya yun ng lysosome para ma-digest. So, yung lysosomes natin produced by the Golgi apparatus. And then we have a third type of spherical membrane-bound organelles, which is the peroxisome. Itong peroxisome is involved in the beta oxidation of lipids and the detoxification of harmful substances. Familiar, di ba? Parang similar siya dun sa purpose nung smooth ER. Kasi di ba, smooth ER is involved in lipid synthesis and detoxification. So, bukod doon, yung mga nagbabad off sa smooth ER, they form peroxisomes and they both participate in these two processes. So, last part of the cell, the long-awaited nucleus. So, ito yung very important defining feature ng eukaryotic cell. Kasi nga, defined yung nucleus niya, hindi siya free-floating lang sa cytosol. So, ang nucleus natin, siya ang naghahawas ng genetic material or yung DNA natin, which is responsible for directing protein synthesis. Kasi yung cells natin made up of protein, yung mga enzymes natin made up of protein. Tapos yung production ng mga other substances natin, lahat ng processes natin, directed siya dun sa mga processes na naka-embed dun sa DNA natin. So, there are different parts of your nucleus, as you can see here. You have your nucleus itself. It houses yung DNA. Diyan mo makikita yung chromosome natin, which is, as mentioned earlier, it's a linear chromosome that is wrapped around histone. So, kung meron kang histone na ganito, let's draw. If you have histones like this, so yung mga histones, para siyang maliliit na proteins na ganyan. So, ang DNA natin is linear. So, yung linear DNA na yon, naka-wrap around siya sa histones natin para maging mas compact siya. Tapos, especially during kasi yung DNA natin, if in-stretch out mo siya, super haba niya. And para magkasya siya sa maliit na nucleus, kailangan natin siya i-compress and i-rearrange in some way. And that's how the eukaryotic cell does it. Nag-complex siya with histones para nakarap siya ng maayos dun. Okay? So, another part of the nucleus is yung nucleolus. So, ang nucleolus is, pag sinilip mo to sa microscope, parang mga darker spots siya sa loob ng nucleus. Ang meron dito sa nucleus is meron din siyang RNA, which is another nucleic acid. Yun yung nagiging template ng paggawa natin ng proteins. So, yung template na RNA at saka proteins, dito sa nucleolus, ang purpose naman niya is para gumawa ng ribosomes. Kasi di ba yung ribosomes sa labas, siya yung gumagawa naman ng protein for the rest of the cell. So, yung nucleus, merong RNA and protein to assemble the ribosomes, which will later produce yung protein sa labas. And then we also have yung ating nuclear pores dito sa picture. Hindi ko nang nalagay yung definition niya, pero itong nuclear pores na to is pores. So, labasan ng material between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So, kung may pinroduce, kunyari, si cell mo, may order siya. Gawa tayo ng digestive enzyme. So, para gumawa ng digestive enzyme, kailangan ng blueprint ng digestive enzyme na ipoproduce niya. So, kung DNA ito, may order siya. Ito yung structure ng digestive enzyme mo. Gagawa siya ng blueprint. At yung blueprint na yun, itong DNA mo, hindi siya lalabas. Nandiyan lang siya sa loob. Yung blueprint na yun, in the form of RNA, lalabas siya dito sa nuclear pores para makapunta yung RNA mo sa ribosome. Pag nakadating na siya sa ribosome, yung ribosome na yun, yung gagawa nung digestive enzyme na gustong gawin nung nucleus mo. So, aside from that, yung last part natin ng nucleus natin is yung nuclear envelope, which is the membrane. So, it's the boundary between the cytoplasm and the nuclear contents. Syempre, ang purpose ng nuclear envelope is to protect the integrity of the genetic material. Kasi kapag hindi mo pinrotect yung integrity ng genetic material, pag exposed lang siya, magiging prone siya sa mutations. Magiging prone siya sa damage. At maaring, pag na-damage yung DNA mo, susunod na magbigay siya ng orders, ibang protein na yung masatranslate niya, iba na yung magagawa niya, hindi niya na magagawa yung functions ng cell correctly. So next. So that's it for the parts of the cell. We have discussed the cell and its organelles. We also have discussed some of the supramolecular complexes doon sa ating cell. Like yung plasma membrane natin, di ba? Nasabi natin, meron siyang phospholipid bilayer, meron siyang cholesterol, meron din siyang proteins found on the surface. Tapos yung genetic material natin, mentioned briefly, are made up of DNA. So, yung mga sinabi nating parts of the cell na yun, they're also made up of smaller substances, your macromolecules. So, there are four major macromolecules we're concerned with. Yung proteins, yung ating carbohydrates, yung sugars, yung ating lipids or yung fats, like your cholesterol, and then you also have your nucleic acids or your DNA and RNA, na template natin for replication and protein synthesis, respectively. Yung mga macromolecules naman na yon are made up of even smaller monomeric units which are molecules that follow a certain structure. So for example, yung sa proteins natin, they're made up of monomers called amino acids. Yung carbohydrates natin are made up of monomers called monosaccharides. Yung mga nucleic acids natin made up of nucleotides, at yung mga lipids natin is made up of fatty acids. So, yung mga monomeric units na yun and the process they undergo, yun yung important discussion and magiging focus ng ating course na biochemistry. So, let's discuss and proceed na sa ating next topic for this lecture, which is the cell transport processes. So, there are two types of cell transport processes. Meron tayong passive transport. Ito yung downhill. And then you have your active transport, which is yung uphill. So, anong pinagkaiba ng passive transport at ng active transport? So, yung passive transport, kaya siya passive kasi it will proceed on its own. Hindi mo kailangan mag-invest ng energy para pumunta yung isang substance from one side to another. So, by gradient. So, kumbaga, meron kang hill. So, yung downhill mo, kapag nagbagsak ka ng substance, dire-diretso siyang bababa lang, 'di ba? Kasi may gravity. in the same way. Gano'n yun. Kaya siya downhill. Kasi kusa siyang mangyayari, from high to low, gagalaw yung substance without expending energy. Yung active transport naman is uphill. Kasi hindi mo mamu-move yung substance mula dun sa area na low papunta sa area na high if hindi ka mag-i-invest ng energy. For example, kunyari, di ba, pag nagtulak ka ng bato, paakyat ng bundok, maraming energy ka may expend. Hindi ka gaya ng pag tinulak mo siya pababa, gugulong siya mag-isa. So, yun ang pagkakaiba ng passive transport at active transport. The passive transport, it will flow on its own. Sa active transport, you have to expend energy. You have to make an active effort in order to go against dun sa gradient. So, yun ang analogy natin dito sa self-transport processes. So, sa passive transport, marami tayong different types. Meron tayong diffusion, meron tayong facilitated diffusion, at meron tayong osmosis. Sa active transport naman, there are also different types, pero we will not go into detail since masyado ng in-depth yun for your level. Dito muna tayo sa different types of passive transport. So, sa passive transport, ang una nating type, which is the most basic, is simple diffusion. So what's simple diffusion? It's unassisted movement of solutes across a semi-permeable membrane. So, unassisted, ibig sabihin, walang kailangang gawin, walang kailangang ibigay na ATP. Dadaloy siya across a membrane, in this case, sa ating cell, from high concentration to low concentration. So, mula sa mataas, papunta sa baba. Mula sa malapot, papunta sa malabnaw. Kasi, di ba, kunyari, yung meron kang area na high yung concentration, yung substance mo dito, magdi-diffuse lang siya freely without doing anything. Because ang goal ng system mo to maintain equilibrium is maging pantay yung concentration on this side of the membrane and this side of the membrane. So, sa passive transport, kahit wala kang gawin, magdi-diffuse at magdi-diffuse siya downhill or along the gradient. Kasi yung gradient mo, dito yung mataas yung concentration, papunta sa low concentration. From malapot, magiging pupunta siya dun sa area na mas malabnaw. So, kumbaga, kung yung tang mo dito is malapot, marami kang nilagay na orange juice, marami kang nilagay na powder ng orange juice, tapos may membrane ka, mag-filter siya dito sa kabilang side dahil dito, mas maraming tubig. Mas konti yung tang dito. Para maging even yung lasa niya. Di ba? Ganun yung example natin. And then, we have another type of diffusion, of passive transport rather, which is facilitated diffusion. Ito naman, yung parang diffusion lang din siya. Kaso, hindi kasi mas from high concentration to low concentration, the reaction will ideally proceed normally. Kaso, ang problem kasi sa facilitated diffusion is itong solutes dito, hindi niya kayang mag-cross ng membrane alone dahil ito ay non-polar. So for polar substances na gustong tumawid ng plasma membrane, kailangan yan dumaan sa carrier protein or sa transport protein dito sa may membrane natin. So, same movement from high to low, kaso dadaan ng carrier protein. And dahil high to low naman siya, from malapot to malabnaw, maraming solute to konti ang solute, hindi niya kailangan ng energy. So, you have diffusion, you have facilitated diffusion, and then next one is osmosis. So, itong osmosis naman is the movement of water or yung solvent mo across a semi-permeable membrane. Kung kanina, kunyari, kung kanina, ang gumagalaw is yung solute, dito naman sa osmosis, ang gumagalaw is yung solvent. 'Di ba? Sabi ko kanina, meron kang juice, yung tang. Ang gumagalaw doon is yung powder, yung juice powder na hinalo mo. Kung may membrane, meron kang meron kang filter, tapos yung powder mo or yung solute mo is concentrated on one side, 'di ba magmo-move siya across kapag diffusion. Sa osmosis naman, yung water ang gagalaw. Ang gagawin niya is, ang galaw ng water is from low concentration of solutes to high concentration of solutes. So, baligtad. So, medyo nakakalito, di ba? Pero ang isipin mo na lang dito, sa osmosis is movement of water. Para siyang diffusion of water. Dito sa kabilang side, maraming water. So, high water potential, high concentration of water, pupunta siya sa area na low concentration yung water. So, dito, malapot yung solution mo. Dito, malabnaw dahil maraming water. Yung water na mismo, yung gagalaw, pupunta doon sa mas malapot para maging even yung ano nila, yung concentration nila. So, itong osmosis also does not require energy. So, and then, you have your active transport. So, yung active transport, as mentioned earlier, kailangan na ng energy investment. So, ano nangyari sa active transport? As you can see here in this diagram, dito, ang gustong gawin ng cell is to transport these molecules onto the other side. Kaso, ang problema mo, dito sa side na to, mataas na yung concentration. So, hindi siya mag-diffuse ng paganito kasi mataas yung concentration dito. Eh, di ba ang diffusion natin is from high to low. So, ang mangyayari, in order to force more of these molecules into this area na already saturated, na already mataas yung concentration, gagamit yung ATP, yung cell natin, para maibomba niya itong mga molecules na to from low concentration to high concentration. So, para ma-move niya itong solutes na to against the concentration gradient. So, kumbaga, pipilitin niyang ma-shoot dito sa loob ng cell yung solutes kahit marami ng solutes doon against doon sa natural tendency ng solutes na lumabas dahil dito sa loob ng cell na lumabas. Kasi 'di ba, ang natural tendency niya pag high dito lalabas siyang gano'n para maging equal sila ng concentration. Kaso dito nga kasi mataas na yung concentration. So lalabas to siya dapat. Pero dahil gumamit ka ng active transport, yung mga nasa labas pa ang ipapasok mo. Dahil at magagawa mo 'yun pag nag-invest ka ng ATP. So, here's a summary of what we just discussed. Meron tayong passive transport which requires energy. Meron tayong active transport. We have passive transport which does not require energy. We also have active transport which requires energy. So simple diffusion, solutes move from high to low unassisted. Sa facilitated diffusion, solutes move from high to low through carrier proteins. Sa osmosis naman, yung water moves from low to high concentration of solutes, from high to low concentration of water, across a semipermeable membrane. So, yung mga passive transport, I repeat, does not require energy. Yung active transport naman natin, ito yung energy requiring process. Gumagamit tayo ng pumps. So, bomba. Like, kunyari, di ba, yung naalala niyo yung mga water pump natin, di ba, galing siya sa baba. Ang natural tendency ng water mo mula sa surface is bumaba, di ba? Bumaba siya, mag-sink into the ground. Pero dahil may bomba ka nasa ilalim ng lupa, yung bomba mo, pinapump niya yung water na nasa ilalim ng lupa para umakyat siya sa surface. Parang ganun yun, yung active transport. So, yung protein pumps sa membrane facilitate the movement of the solute mula sa area ng low concentration to high concentration against the concentration gradient. And this process, remember, active transport requires energy. So, we have another type of transport mechanism in our cells. Ito naman yung involving yung vesicles, spherical membrane-bound organelles in our cells mentioned earlier. So, yung vesicular transport is the transport of materials across the cell membrane through vesicles that are formed or lost as material is brought into or out of the cell. So there are two types of vesicular transport, where there is endocytosis and there is exocytosis. So endo, into, papasok. So papasok yung substance, galing siya sa labas, papasok siya sa cell gamit ng vesicles formed at the membrane. Meron naman tayong exocytosis. So, bulk movement of substance out of exiting the cell. Kasi, yung vesicle mo, magpo-fuse siya sa plasma membrane para i-release yung contents sa labas. So, an example of exocytosis is yung ating release of neurotransmitters, di ba? Pag nag-contract yung muscle mo, hindi naman siya magko-contract nang walang signal mula sa brain. So, mag-fire ng impulse yung brain mo, sabi mo, parang gusto ko i-contract yung muscle ko. So, may signal na dadaan doon sa ating muscle cell. Tapos, isi-signal niya yung release ng neurotransmitters doon mula sa neuron. And how does it do that? Well, nagtitrigger siya ng calcium-gated. It's a complicated process, pero yung nangyayari dito basically is yung nerve impulse triggers yung pag-migrate ng mga vesicles na nagko-contain ng neurotransmitter to the surface of the uh, neuron. So, itong synaptic vesicles containing acetylcholine, which is the neurotransmitter, magpo-fuse siya dito sa membrane. Dito. So, ito yung vesicle mo, di ba? It will migrate to the edge of the membrane. Tapos, magpo-fuse siya sa membrane in order to open up and release the contents inside the vesicle. So, pag nag-release yung contents inside the vesicle, yung acetylcholine magbabind na sa receptors doon sa muscle cell. Tapos, yung muscle cell na yung magko-contract. So, yun ang example ng exocytosis. So, meron pa tayong several types of endocytosis as mentioned. There are 3 types of endocytosis. First one is phagocytosis. Familiar na tayo dito. This is ang nangyayari sa phagocytosis. This is what we refer to as cell eating kasi kinakain niya. Kumbaga si Pac-Man, ine-engulf niya yung cell para ipasok siya sa loob. So, cell surface extends. So, magkakaroon siya ng tinatawag natin na pseudopodia. False feet. So, parang mag-extension yan. And then, pag gagawin niya, isusurround niya yung particle or kunyari bacteria, i-engulf niya yan, tapos tsaka niya isusurround at ipapasok sa loob ng cell. So, yun yung phagocytosis na tinatawag natin. So, ang example nga is yung white blood cell engulfing a bacterium para ma-digest nung cell natin para mamatay yung bacteria to fight infection. And then, another type of endocytosis is yung pinocytosis or yung cell drinking. So, sulat nga natin. Si phagocytosis is yung cell eating, while si pinocytosis naman, ito yung cell drinking. So, ang nangyayari naman sa pinocytosis is yung cell membrane mo, nag-i-invaginate siya. So, gumagawa siya ng hukay. Imbes na mag-extend siya outside the cell, gagawa lang siya ng butas. Well, gagawa siya ng hukay or pit dito. So, dun sa ano na yon, syempre, dahil may space doon, magpo-flow in yung extracellular fluid doon sa loob ng pit na yon. Tapos, ang gagawin ngayon, magpipinch off yung itong vesicle mo, ay magpipinch off tong area na to form a vesicle para nasa loob na siya ng cell ngayon. So, na-internalize niya na yung extracellular fluid and yung contents na habol niya doon. So, itong pinocytosis, ang example nito is for the absorption of small proteins in the kidney. Naalala niyo ba pag nagpa-medical kayo, 'di ba? Pag nag-urinalysis kayo, meron doon nakalagay proteins. 'Di ba dapat walang laman 'yon? Kasi ito nga 'yon. Kasi yung proteins importante siya sa katawan natin. So hindi siya dapat tinatapon ng katawan. So, ang ginagawa ng katawan natin is nire-reabsorb niya yung mga small proteins dun sa kidney natin. So, in order to do that, nag-a-undergo siya ng pinocytosis. So, ang next part naman natin is yung receptor-mediated endocytosis. Ito naman, it's a little more complicated, pero halos parehas lang siya nung pinocytosis actually. Basta ang importante 'pag sinabi kasing receptor-mediated, so kailangan yung area na yun meron siyang receptors. So yung mga So, 'pag kunyari nag-send ng signals, yung signal na yon magba-bind siya sa receptor. Signal molecules na yon called ligands will bind to the receptors dun. Tapos, dahil may nag-bind dun, yung plasma membrane dun sa area na yon gagawa siya ng pit. So, parang pinocytosis, tapos gagawa siya ng vesicle paloob. So, ganun yung nangyayari in the uptake of cholesterol into the cells. So, that's it for yung ating uh, vesicular transport. We have exocytosis and you have endocytosis, which you have three types: phagocytosis, pinocytosis, and receptor-mediated endocytosis. So, we have the last part of our lecture. Ang haba, no? I'm sorry about that, pero we have to finish this. So, cell cycle. We will go through we'll have a brief overview lang of how the cell how the lifespan of the cell proceeds, kung ano yung mga processes that the cell undergoes. Yun, and let's go through it one by one. So, ayan. So, there are two major phases as far as the cell cycle is concerned, di ba? Yung first phase is yung interphase. This is the phase in which the cell stays majority of its time in. Tapos, small part lang nung cell cycle actually is dedicated to to replication or yung mitosis. Di ba parang tao, di ba? Hindi naman majority of the time mo dedicated to reproduction. Majority of the time mo, nagtatrabaho ka, nag-aaral ka, whatever. Yung reproductive part ng life cycle, maliit na part lang yan. Similar lang sa cell cycle. So, there are three phases dun sa two major phase, we have yung two major phases, you have yung interphase, yung majority. So, ito, interphase, itong buong part na to. And then, you have your M phase. So, it can be mitosis kapag somatic cell or yung regular cells, mga muscle, mga blood, ganon. Or meiosis naman kapag sex cells. Pero, beyond the scope of this lecture na yan. So two phases, interphase and the M phase. So, let's go through the interphase first kasi kasi hindi ka makakapag-replicate kung hindi mo pa dinaanan yung interface. So, ito yung interface. So, sa interface natin, it's also divided into three phases din. Yung first one is the G1 phase or the growth phase. Growth 1. The first period of growth. So, ang growth 1 or G1 phase, ang nangyayari dito is the cells accumulate the needed enzymes and nucleotides needed for DNA replication. So, ang ginagawa nito, nagpapalaki siya, nag-iipon siya ng lakas, iniipon niya yung mga raw materials para makapag-duplicate siya ng genetic material. So, yung pag-duplicate ng genetic material itself does not occur during mitosis. Nangyayari siya sa interphase pa lang. Nag-synthesize na siya nung extra copy ng DNA niya para pag nag-divide siya, later on sa M phase, hahatiin niya na lang. Okay? So, sa growth 1, first growth phase, and then, after the growth 1 phase, meron ditong checkpoint. Check ng cell mo kung sapat na ba yung growth, kung kung wala bang errors, ganun. Kung okay na ba yung growth requirements niya in order to proceed, meron na bang enough nucleotides needed para dun sa i-replicate niya ng DNA, etc. So, After that, it proceeds to the S phase. So what is S phase? S stands for synthesis. Kasi dito ka na mag-synthesize ng DNA. Yung DNA replication is one of the major processes na i-discuss natin sa topic ng nucleic acids. Kasi yung DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. Dito pala nasulat kanina. Deoxyribonucleic acid. One of the major biomolecules. This is the building block of your DNA, your genetic material. So yung DNA natin is yung DNA natin nire-replicate na siya before mitosis para paghihiwalayin na lang siya pagdating ng mitosis. Di-divide na lang. Hindi na siya kasi meron na siyang kopya. So after mo mag-replicate sa S phase ng DNA, you have another growth phase. So growth 2. May checkpoint ulit between S phase and growth 2 phase. Check niya, wala bang mali dun sa kinopya mo, tama ba yung pagkakakopya. Proceed na tayo sa growth 2. Pagdating ng growth 2, your cell will grow in preparation for mitosis. So kung meron siyang yung cell mo, meron siyang isang mitochondria, gagawin niyang dalawa yung mitochondria. Kung yung cell mo, meron siyang smooth ER, gagawa na siya ng extra na smooth ER para pag nag-cell divide, yung mga organelles niya, dodoblehin niya na para mamaya, pagdating ng mitosis, hatiin niya na lang sa dalawa. Okay? So, let's go through the phases of the M phase. The M phase, mitosis. So, what are the phases? There are actually 4 phases yung M phase and then followed by cytokinesis. So, first phase of the M phase is the prophase. So, prophase, before yung prephase, ang nangyayari sa prophase, kasi di ba nakita nyo yung nucleus kanina? Sa mayon. It's like this. Ganyan. So, very vague. Kahit sabihin mong linear DNA siya. Pag sinilip mo siya, isa lang siyang malaking dot sa microscope. Ayan. Ayan. So, siya yun. Very vague, not very well defined. Pero pagdating ng prophase, actually, magko-condense na yung mga chromosomes mo para makikita mo na siya na mukha siyang makikita mo na tong characteristic shape ng mga chromosomes under the microscope. Pag kunyari sa lab natin sa Saturday or yung iba sa lab nyo, makikita nyo yung chromosomes, magko-condense na sila at magiging visible. Tapos ang mangyayari, spindle fibers emerge from centrosome. Ano yung centrosome? Ito yan, yung green. Ano yan? This one. So ito, these are centrosomes. Magkakaroon ng yung mga centrosome, dito gumagawa ng microtubules. So yung microtubules kanina mentioned, di ba? Involved in cell division. Yung mga microtubules na yun, yung centrosome na maglalabas na siya ng mga microtubules which will attach dito sa mga chromosomes natin para paghihiwalayin niya na. So, emerging from here, spindle fibers made up of microtubules. And then, ang mangyayari, magbe-breakdown na yung nuclear envelope kasi nga, kasi kung may nuclear envelope pa yan, hindi mo siya mapapaghiwalay, hindi mo ma-divide. So, magbe-breakdown yung nuclear envelope and yung, as mentioned, yung centrosomes, na gumagawa ng microtubules, mag-move na siya dito sa opposite pole kasi hihilahin niya yung chromosomes natin na magkahiwalay. So, itong isang chromosome yan for a person. Tapos, ito yung identical copy niya, itong kabila. So, ito, kopya to na ito kopya to nito, ito, kopya to nito. And this one is a copy of this one. So, pagdating ng prophase, yung ang tawag dito sa isa nito, 'di ba ito, isa chromosome. So dahil identical 'to, they're like sisters. So yung isang linya diyan, ito, this one, that's a sister chromatid. So itong kabila, isa pang sister chromatid. Together, siya yung chromosome. Okay? So ang mangyayari, yung microtubules natin na tinatawag nating spindle fibers during mitosis, andito siya. I-align niya, a-attach siya dito kasi 'di ba ito yung chromosome mo. Yung chromosome mo na na-duplicate, yung sister chromatid mo na na-duplicate, meron siyang centromere dito sa gitna. Tinatawag natin centromere. Diyan kumakabit yung spindle fibers dito sa ano, dito sa ng each chromosome. Ay, ng each centrosome. So, yung mga spindle fibers, kumakabit dyan. Tapos, ang nangyayari is, ina-align niya at the metaphase plate. Yung tinatawag nating metaphase plate. Yung area kung saan niya inalign sa gitna, yung mga sister chromatids horizontally or vertically kung nakapag-ganon yung cell. So, kung saan niya inalign sa gitna, yung mga sister chromatids, sa pagitan ng dalawang poles nung cell is yung metaphase plate. So, in the metaphase, ito yung characteristic finding. Chromosomes align at the metaphase plates doon sa gitna ng cell. So, and then what happens next? Ang mangyayari dito, yung centromere mo, pagdating mo ng anaphase, yung centromeres will split in two. So, mahati na siyang ganyan. Diba? Yung isa hatakin this way, yung isa hahatakin this way. So, maghihiwalay siya. So, like this one, oh. Hinatak na yung isang side going to the upper pole. Itong isang side naman going to the lower pole. So, yung sister chromatids, so, dahil nga sinabi natin, yung chromatid na to, sister chromatids, identical sila. So, meron kang copy ng chromatid na to, pupunta doon sa isang pole. Meron ka ng copy niya, pupunta sa kabila. So, yung yung mga spindle fibers na nakakabit sa centromere, mag-shorten sila para mag-move, para mahatak niya itong mga chromatids na to papunta doon sa pole ng cell. So itong mga chromatids na to, mag-move siya papunta here, papunta dito sa upper pole kasi nag-shorten tong mga mga spindle fibers dito. Meanwhile, ito naman sa kabila, lahat naman ng chromatids ito papunta sa baba kasi mag-shorten tong mga spindle fibers na to. Aside from that, meron ding ibang spindle fibers not attached to the centromere. Ang ginagawa naman niya is pinapahaban, nag-e-extend sila para humaba yung cell. Kasi gagawa ka ng dalawang cell, di ba? From one cell. So, kailangan you will have enough room to accommodate yung dalawang daughter cells na ipoproduce mo. So, after anaphase, you have the last phase of your mitosis, which is your telophase. So, pag naka-arrive na siya sa opposite poles, so tapos nang hilahin ng mga centrosome at ng mga spindle fibers, yung mga chromosome, yung mga sister chromatids mo. Nakahiwalay na yung isang set dito, nakahiwalay na yung isang set sa kabilang side. Pag nakarating na sila doon, magde-decondense na sila. Kasi kanina, nag-condense lang naman sila para madali silang paghiwalayin. Ngayon, magkahiwalay na sila, pwede na sila mag-decondense at pwede na silang balutan ulit ng nuclear envelope. So, the nuclear envelope starts to surround each set of chromosomes. So, and then, dahil yung spindle fibers, tapos na yung trabaho niya, tapos na siyang mag-elongate ng cell, tapos na siyang maghila ng chromosomes to opposite poles, magbe-breakdown na siya. Yung remaining spindle fibers naman na nag-elongate ng cell, tuloy-tuloy lang yung gagawin niya para maghiwalay palalo yung dalawang poles in order to form yung ating two daughter cells. And then yung phase after your mitosis is what we refer to as cytokinesis. So, nangyayari doon, nagkakaroon ng cleavage furrow hanggang sa mahati yung cell. So, ito yung, for example, ito, kakaroon ka ng cleavage furrow, tapos yung cleavage furrow mag-e-extend hanggang mahati siya. Okay? Meanwhile, sa plants naman, meron ka namang, di ba, meron kang cells dito, meron kang cells dito. Yung plants natin, rigid siya. Bukod sa plasma membrane, meron siyang cell wall. So, hindi siya pwedeng maggawa lang ng cleavage furrow at mahati. Ang mangyayari doon is magde-develop ng bagong cell wall precursor known as a cell plate sa pagitan nila. So, magiging ganyan siya pag plant cell. Pag animal cell, cleavage furrow. Pag plant cell, cell plate. And that's it, no? You have duplicated your daughter cell. Yung daughter cell mo containing, since this is mitosis involving somatic or yung regular cells natin, not sex cells, they will have identical sets of chromosomes. So, in summary, all living things, as mentioned, are made up of cells. Cells arise from pre-existing cells. There are two types. Cells can be multicellular. Living organisms can be unicellular or multicellular, and they can be prokaryotic or eukaryotic. Prokaryotic cells are primitive cells with no defined nucleus and no membrane-bound organelles. Eukaryotic cells have a well-defined nucleus and have different membrane-bound organelles that perform different specific functions that help sustain the life of the cell. The cells have numerous transport mechanisms which can be non-energy requiring or can be energy requiring, the cells can also use vesicular transport mechanisms. And then cells, as mentioned, arise from pre-existing cells in the process of replication, which occurs in the M phase of the cell cycle. So that's it for our lecture. Here are my references. Thank you very much for listening and stay safe. Good day.